I came back without a name. The town remembered my face anyway, like a stain 100 washings couldn't lift. 20 years ago they called me Boy Ahad 17. Tonight I stand where the winter wind once bit through my shirt and listen to the hollow building breathe. I'm not here for nostalgia. I'm here because monsters keep souvenirs, and I'm one of them. They said names made boys soft, so they gave us numbers. Mine was inked in purple on a ribbon I wore around my wrist, knotted by a hand that smelled of bleach and cheap perfume. The orphanage wasn't a home, it was a factory that smoothed edges and sold silence by the carton. We lined up for breakfast like shadows, thin, obedient, learning how to chew quickly so the hunger wouldn't notice us. Kids disappeared with paperwork. The director would sweep in with her white smile and say, "What a lucky day for little Anton, adopted by a fine family." And we'd nod like good mannequins, clapping palms that never warmed. At night the pipes groaned, and sometimes there were footsteps where footsteps shouldn't be. The older boys traded stories, experiments, special clinics, men with cufflinks who asked which of us could run the fastest, see the farthest, tolerate the most. I had a brother then, not by blood, we weren't allowed to claim blood, but by the treaty of 2 boys hiding in the same crawl space. He was boy sub to 12, though in the dark I called him Saul because he carried a tiny shard of sunlight in his grin. We shared bread crusts and secrets. He stuttered when scared, but never when he told jokes. When he laughed, the mice answered. One January, the river froze over so hard they walked us across it to church, our breath drawing ghosts behind us. Saul slipped. I caught him. We both laughed, and for a second it felt like the world could tilt toward mercy. That night a nurse with glossy nails woke him from the bunk above mine. She said his number. He looked down at me, eyes wide, and I tried to tangle my fingers in his sleeve. The nurse pried us apart with patient hands. "Lucky day," she whispered. The next morning his bed was made with hospital corners, white as a flag of surrender. They said he'd been adopted by a couple who loved piano and quiet boys. I waited for a letter. I learned the taste of waiting. It tasted like rust. When the chance to run came, sirens, smoke, a short circuit in the laundry room and a gate left ajar, 3 of us bolted. I didn't look back. Not until the trees swallowed the building and I realized I'd left half my life in a bunk bed with white sheets and a boy named after a star. I promised the dark that I would come back for him. The dark promised nothing in return. I came back as a man who wore his hair short and his anger long. The town had grown a new layer of paint and called it progress. A coffee shop crouched where the butcher used to be, selling kindness in paper cups. The orphanage itself, now rebranded the Harbour Youth Wellness Centre, stood proud in brochures, its bricks scrubbed, its windows clear as lies. In the lobby hung a plaque that read, "Every child deserves a safe place to grow. No mention of the basement, no mention of numbers." I rented a room above a repair shop and introduced myself to the clerk as Anton because I was tired of being a ghost. The name fit the mouth like a bruise, tender, familiar. At night I mapped the town from memory, walking old routes with new eyes, the alley where we'd steal splinters of heat from a laundromat vent, the cemetery hill where kids dared each other to see whose shadow got there first. Every corner held a breadcrumb of the boy I'd been. I followed them like a pilgrim. There are 2 kinds of returns, the kind where you hope to be forgiven and the kind where forgiveness would ruin your plan. I was here for the second type. My plan had 3 verbs: find, expose, end. The order could flex. The result could not. First I needed a door to wedge open. I found it in the person of Mr. Lebedev, once the orphanage's benefactor, now a philanthropist with a private gym, and articles about leadership framed in his hallway. He liked to jog at dawn. He liked to be seen. He had the soft belly of a man whose sins had made him comfortable. On my second morning in town, I fell in step behind him along the river path. "New?" he puffed when I drew even. "Passing through," I answered and matched his pace. After a mile of polite nothing, I said, "You ever think of the old place?" He laughed. "Which old place isn't old around here?" "The children's home." That took his breath the way stairs do. He recovered with a politician's smile. "Ah, the harbour. My wife's on the board. Transformational work." "You connected?" "In a way," I said, and let the words hang like wet laundry in a windless room. He looked at my hands. People always do when they're thinking about pasts they can't see. "You should come by," he offered, too quickly. "We're doing outreach, mentorship. Boys need men like you." Oh, I thought, they still need us to believe. I shook his hand and felt the tremor under his skin, the small animal in every man who knows what he's buried. Vengeance is a cruel negotiator. It always asks for collateral before work begins. My collateral was sleep. I knew better than to start with the loudest wolves, start with the quiet ones who carried keys. Her name used to be Nurse Zoika. Now it was Ms. Zoya, Wellness Coordinator. I found her photo on the harbour's website, chin lifted under soft lighting, words about trauma-informed care, typed in a font that forgave everything. I remembered the tick of her jaw when she yanked Saul's sleeve. I remembered the ring of her laugh when a boy flinched at the thermometer's cold kiss. I remembered the smell of bleach. The office window gave onto a courtyard, exactly where the old punishment bench used to sit. I watched her through glass as she stirred sugar into her tea and encouraged a nervous teen to breathe. When the kid left, I knocked. She studied me the way one studies storms on the horizon, calculating distance. "Can I help you?" "You helped me once," I said, stepping in. "You helped me lose someone." Names are crowbars. I used hers. "Nurse Zoika." The colour left her face like a tide that knew better. She closed the office door and pressed a finger to her lips. "That name," she whispered, "isn't mine anymore." "No," I agreed. "You gave it up when you traded boys for bonuses." She tried the stairs of denial but tripped on the first step. "We did what we could," she said. "We found placements. The state wanted numbers. It was never simple." "It was simple to him," I said. "His number was 12. Something cracked behind her eyes. She saw a winter night, glossy nails, a sleeve slipping away. She saw me seeing it. "If you're here to punish me," she murmured, "get it over with." Punishment would have been easy. But easy would have ended my hunt too soon. I set the photo of Saul on her desk, a picture stolen from a surveillance printout, a teen boy entering a clinic years after he last shared my bunk. Saul, grown taller than his fear. "Where is this?" I asked. Her gaze touched the photo and recoiled. "I don't know." "You do," I insisted. "You know the doctor, you know the donors, you know the van routes, the intermediate homes, the fake adoptions. I don't need your tears, I need your map." She folded. Not out of remorse, remorse is expensive, but out of the knowledge that men like Lebedev do not fall on their own. She wrote names, she drew arrows, she said the word trial and the word dosage and the phrase, "some kids were special." She said, "We didn't know and we never intended harm, and if I talk, they'll erase me." "You'll be erased either way," I said softly. "But this way, you get to leave a mark." When I left, I had a path, a clinic with mirrored windows an hour out of town, registered to a shell foundation that slept in Lebedev's pocket. And I had the sound of her breath hitching as I closed the door, the small animal in her chest finally realizing the forest had changed. That night, the river wore a moon like a coin on its tongue. I stood on the old bridge and practiced the kindness of not turning around. The boy I had been would have wanted me to forgive her. The man I had to be watched the current and promised it something truer. Not forgiveness, but balance. Not every survivor wants a war. Some want rent money, some want sleep without alarms, some want to forget they ever learned the choreography of fear. I knew I couldn't do this alone, but I also knew I had no right to conscript anyone's healing. I started with Pavel, who slept under the overpass with a mutt that mistrusted daylight. Pavel had been Sucker 31, the fastest runner, the kind of kid who could ghost past a guard and have bread in his pocket before you blinked. Now his teeth were a map of storms survived. I brought stew and sat on the curb. "They still counting us?" he asked, eyes glittering with jokes he didn't tell anymore. "They're counting donations now," I said. "Different column, same math." He scratched the dog's ear. "You want me to testify?" "I want you safe," I said, "but I also want their names to rot in sunlight." He laughed without sound. "Rot is slow, brother." "Then help me make it faster." By week's end, we had a small circle. Pavel, Lika, who worked nights at a laundromat and hid her scars under sleeves that told no stories, Artyom, sober 2 months and stubborn about it, and Anya, whose stutter sounded like Morse code when she got angry. We met in the back of the repair shop, the air rich with oil and stubborn machines. I pinned a paper map to the wall and drew lines from the orphanage to the clinic, from the clinic to corporate addresses dressed in suits. "You don't owe me," I told them. "You don't owe the boy you used to be. You owe only what you can carry." Anya touched the photo of the clinic's mirrored window. "I remember that glass," she said, the words catching and breaking free. "It made us look like ghosts." "We were," Pavel said gently. "Now we're not." We rehearsed truths until they fit in our mouths without splinters. We practiced sitting in chairs without flinching when doors shut. We called a journalist with a spine. We called a public defender who believed in lost causes. We did not call the police. The police had once held the door. One night, as we worked, a car idled across the street too long. The dog lifted its head and growled. I went to the window and saw a silhouette in the driver's seat, a phone lifting to take a photo, a thumb tapping send. "They know," I told the room. Lika shrugged. "They always did," she said. "We just forgot to be afraid." I slept on the floor that night with my boots on, dreams full of rivers and numbers dissolving into names. Dawn found me already moving. Vengeance, after all, is most efficient before breakfast. The clinic looked like therapy, pale wood, plants, the kind of receptionist smile that promised 3 breathing techniques and a lavender diffuser. Behind the decor, locked files, refrigerated secrets, trash bags with trace evidence. I booked a consultation under a name that wasn't mine and wore clothes that made me forget I'd ever run. "Anton?" the receptionist called, and for a second the room tilted, my 2 lives meeting on a carpet that smelled of lemon. I stood. A doctor with hair too neat to be honest offered a hand. "Dr. Savin, come with me." In his office, certificates climbed the wall like a ladder to absolution. He asked questions. "How are you sleeping? Any trauma history? Any interest in participating in cutting-edge studies that could help others like you?" "I used to be a number," I told him. "Does that count?" He flinched in the tiniest way. "The body knows even when the mouth pretends." "We don't use dehumanizing language here," he said smoothly. "We're here to heal." "Then heal this," I said, and set a recorder on the desk. "Tell me about your funding. Tell me about the kids who never got a call back. Tell me about the winters when the vans ran late and you skipped consent. For a breath, the room stopped pretending. He saw the trap. He saw the teeth. He saw the boy in me with fists still clenched around a vow. Then he smiled, all expensive calm. I think we're done, he said, standing. He reached for the door. I reached for the photo of Saul in my pocket and slid it across the desk. He was 12 when you started. Where did he go? Dr. Savin's hand hovered over the doorknob, then dropped. Some of them transfer, he said. A partner site, higher security, more controlled conditions. Where? He swallowed. There are NDAs. Mine is older, I said. Signed with blood. Where? He gave me a name and a road and a warning about men who never sweat on camera. I left with the recorder hot and the receptionist's smile pasted to the back of my skull like a warning label. Outside, the air felt too clean. That's the problem with places like this. They launder guilt so thoroughly you begin to doubt the stain. I didn't doubt. Not anymore. The road to the partner site was lined with pines that whispered in each other's ears. The compound squatted at the end like a secret too heavy to move. High fences, cameras that blinked like nervous eyes, a gate that smiled only at badges. Pavel was my lookout, crouched in a broken van half a mile away with the dog in his lap. Anya kept the phone line open, recording every sound. We were done being ghosts. Ghosts don't leave evidence. I climbed the back fence at midnight. Old habits return quick, knees tight, breath shallow, fingers curled around metal. Inside, floodlights washed the yard silver. I ducked into shadow, my heartbeat sinking with the hum of generators. Through a window, I saw him. Taller now, shoulders straight as punishment, hair clipped to military precision. My brother, Saul. Except the badge on his chest said security. Except his eyes scanned the cameras with the obedience of someone trained to forget. I froze. My vow had carried me this far, but it hadn't told me what to do if vengeance wore my brother's skin. Later, when he caught me, he didn't shout. He just held the gun low and said, 17. His voice cracked on the number. Recognition hit him like a tide. For a moment, the muzzle wavered. For a moment, we were boys under the river bridge again. They said you were dead, he whispered. They said you were adopted, I answered. Both lies sat between us like wolves waiting to feed. We hid in the maintenance wing, the hum of pipes covering our words. He told me his version. After that night, he wasn't adopted. He was transferred, tested, rebuilt. Some didn't survive. He did. Survival was rewarded with a uniform and a job guarding the place that broke him. They trained me to keep order, Saul said. To believe we were chosen, special, not victims. His jaw trembled. If I stop believing that, Anton, then every scar means nothing. I wanted to shake him, to remind him of the crawl space, the bread crusts, the laughter that warmed us. But trauma rewrites memory until lies feel like bandages. You're still 12 to me, I told him, and I promised I'd come back. He gripped the gun tighter. If you burn this place down, they'll erase us both, and the others. You think you're saving us, but you'll bury us again. My chest split with a choice, kill him to end the chain or save him to keep my vow. Both tasted like betrayal. We didn't get to decide. Alarms shrieked. Lebedev's men had traced our circle, found Pavel's van, followed the crumbs. Shots cracked the night. Anya screamed through the phone before the line went dead. Chaos lit the compound. I dragged Saul into the server room, my recorder clutched like scripture. Files spilled across screens, transfers, doses, signatures, proof that boys and girls weren't lost, but used. I copied it all, every ugly bite, guards stormed in. Saul hesitated only once, then swung the butt of his rifle into his commander's jaw. "Go!" he shouted. "Get it out!" We ran through smoke and sparks. Pavel's dog barked like a siren. Lika yanked open the van door with blood on her sleeve. Together we crashed through the gate, the compound shrinking in the rearview mirror until it was just another starless shadow. The journalist kept her promise. The files hit the web like gasoline meeting flame. Photos, receipts, signatures, an empire of cruelty unraveling in real time. Lebedev denied. Zoya wept on TV, claiming coercion. Dr. Savin vanished. But the evidence was louder than excuses. Protests bloomed outside the harbour gates. Politicians scrambled to disown their donations. I watched it all from a rooftop, Saul beside me in borrowed clothes, his badge discarded. "Do you feel lighter?" he asked. "No," I said. "Truth isn't wings, it's weight. But at least now everyone else has to carry it too." We burned the last remnants ourselves. The old orphanage, our factory of silence, stood empty, windows boarded. Together we soaked its floors with kerosene. Together we struck the match. Flames roared like the voices we were never allowed to raise. Saul stood in the glow, his face carved by firelight. "We're free," he whispered. I shook my head. "We're just not caged. Freedom comes later." As the roof collapsed, I felt the boy I'd been dissolve into smoke. Vengeance was complete, but healing was still a country I hadn't learned to enter. Monsters don't hide under beds. They build them, sell them, and teach children to sleep quietly. Sometimes vengeance is the only language they understand, but even when you win, the echo of your childhood screams never truly leaves.